Welcome to the Common House Podcast, the show that talks about marketing, advertising, and the creative that drives business in the Southeast. Today we have Erin Fults with us. Erin, thanks so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Erin, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
So I am the Director of Strategy and Training at Bridge Selling. We are a sales call strategy company. We work with sales teams, helping them create a really solid strategy for how they approach their sales conversations. And what's really unique about us is that our call flow framework has a way to score the effectiveness of a sales conversation. And so we have a framework that allows us to then help a company figure out what does good look like on a sales call for your company so that you can replicate your best calls. We can score them for you so you know, can really see what's happening on sales conversations so you can actually improve them and get better results.
And I think that kind of leads into, you probably kind of already answered this, but what is the biggest problem that Bridge Selling solves for small to medium-sized businesses?
Yeah, so studies show that sales leaders listen to less than 1% of sales conversations, like listen to recordings to know what's actually happening in the sales conversations. If you think about that, that's a problem because if we don't know what's actually happening in the conversation, we don't know what's broken, what sales reps are doing well, what they're not doing well, and what needs to be improved. And so our framework gives you a way to have visibility into that in a way that historically we've not had. And then because there's a sales or a scoring methodology behind it, you can actually assign a score and know in the 6 steps of our call flow framework, we're either doing really well in this step or we're not doing really well. And you stack that up against 30 calls with one salesperson on top of each other, those scores, and you begin to see patterns, visually see patterns very easily. And you go, oh, now as a sales leader, I know how I need to coach up my sales team member in order for them to really improve in the quality of their conversations.
That's awesome. That's incredibly unique.
Yeah, no doubt. And most business leaders are tracking their sales pipeline in some way through a CRM or their close rate. But it sounds like what you're saying is the quality is what they can track now.
That's right. Yes, 100%. We think of the sales conversation as a tiny hinge on the door of sales, right? Small hinges swing open large doors. So the door is sales, the close, but the hinges are the conversations that are happening that lead to that close. And historically, sales leaders, they track all kinds of metrics. You're tracking close rate, you're tracking deal velocity, you're tracking time to close.
I mean, there's what socks you wore that day.
Yeah, exactly. Like how many conversations are we having? I mean, all of those are good things to track, but a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are lag measures. They're telling us the results that have happened as a result of other activities. Whereas when you're really tracking the quality of the conversation itself, now we're going, okay, human to human, are we having a conversation that is moving the deal forward in a way that is effective and in a way that both honors the buyer and the person you're selling to, as well as accounting for the things that need to be accounted for in the sales conversation in order for it to be effective.
Yeah. I've heard you talk a lot about the 6-step process. Kind of walk me through that.
Yeah. So our company is Bridge Selling. So the bridge metaphor is what we use for our framework. And so picture sales like walking with your customer left to right over a bridge. Okay. And our bridge has 6 steps to it. Now, our steps we have our kind of foundational baseline generic framework that we use. And I'll tell you what those steps are in just a second. But the work that we're doing with our clients is we're helping them customize those steps in a way that makes most sense for their company, their sales process, the language that they use, that sort of thing. But the foundational 6 steps are this. Step 1 is pinpoint the pain. We need to know why in the world are we talking to this prospect? What is the problem that they're trying to solve that they're coming to us thinking that our product or service will solve for them? We need to get really clear on what that is. Step 2 is qualify the lead. So we need to know, are they even qualified to work with us? Are we a good fit for them? Are they a good fit for us and what we sell? Step 3 is solution and success. So once we know the problem they're trying to solve and we're clear on, I think think we are equipped to be able to solve that problem for them, then we need to match one of our product, service, our solution as the solution for their pain and say, this product, this service, we think this will be a great fit for what you're trying to accomplish or the problem you're trying to solve. And then paired with that is success. We want to paint a picture of what does success look like? What does your life look like as a result of working with us, of buying our product or service? What's possible for you? And then step 4 is question and answer. So any great sales conversation should be a two-way conversation, not a singular pitch going in one direction. So that step is really all around just opening the floor for Q&A. What questions do you have? Give me your toughest questions. What are you concerned about? What have I not answered? And really having a actual two-way conversation with your prospect. And then steps 5 and 6 really go hand in hand. Step 5 is the 3 next steps. So giving the prospect a really clear, what are the 3 next things that need to happen to move forward? And it should be based on their timeline and your capacity as a company. And so often we talk about that as being step 1 is your step that we give to the lead. So you go do this. Then me as the sales rep, I'm going to do this. And then together we're going to do whatever step 3. So 3 clear steps to move forward. And then step 6 is close or schedule. So not every sales process is a one-call close situation. Sometimes it takes multiple. And so if you're not closing the deal, so signing the contract, sending the invoice, whatever that is, then you want to schedule the next conversation before you ever get off the call.
Okay, yeah.
Because if you don't do that, you're going to end up in follow-up hell. You're just going to end up in like follow-up, and it becomes this ridiculous kind of chasing game that nobody likes. So
bam fam.
Exactly.
Book a meeting from a meeting.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, we changed that in our sales process a couple months ago, and it's helped a ton. Yeah, it's just you're not in that purgatory over and over again.
Right.
And Erin, I remember when you first told me about this, I remember thinking, oh crap, I wonder what my score would be if I, had one scored. It was kind of scary and certainly intimidating. We won't dive into that right now, but what are some of the common mistakes you guys are finding as you work with sales leaders to improve their process?
If you look at it across our generic bridge, and we actually, the first engagement we do with most clients is to do an audit where we go and we listen to at least 10 calls per salesperson on their team and give them what we call their baseline bridge score. So we have listened to hundreds and hundreds of calls. And high level, the problem that I see most is that salespeople are not guiding or leading the conversation. They're being very reactionary. So it's like this ping pong of the lead ask a question, they answer the question, but they're not actually guiding the conversation in a helpful way to play the guide for the buyer. So that's high level problem. Generally though, the biggest problem I see is not really getting clear on pinpointing the pain. Like, why are they calling? They picked up the phone to call you today for some reason. Why was it? Don't just jump straight to the thing that you sell. Because when you don't get clear on what the problem is, and not just the external problem, the thing that they come to you first, but the internal, like what is the deeper emotional thing that's happening for them because they're dealing with this problem. If you can get to that, if you can understand this is, what's going to happen if we don't solve this problem 3 months from now, what does your life look like? How does that make you feel? Emotional words are good ones to listen for. But when you can really get to that point with a prospect and understand the true problem that you're trying to help them solve, it unlocks a whole host of things in the sales conversation where you can actually be helpful because you're positioning to solve the problem for them, not just sell them the widget or sell them the service.
One thing you emphasize is objectivity in coaching. So how does scoring sales calls help leaders coach more effectively?
Often we have been in conversation with sales leaders and we ask them, how does your one-to-one coaching, they may call it coaching, they may call it something else, but their one-to-ones with their team go. And often they have told us that it always feels like a little bit of a guessing game. They might be doing a deal review, or they might be pulling a little bit of a recording from a sales conversation, and they're kind of cherry picking one or two things. It may or may not be a true kind of picture of what's happening, like the pattern of what's happening with the salesperson. It's just sort of a cherry picked moment in time. And what happens is they're often coaching off of kind of gut feel. They're kind of coaching off of like generic best practice, but they're not actually coaching that rep or that salesperson for what that particular person is doing well, or where there are gaps in their conversations. And so when you can score, not only are you clear what you're scoring on, because there's the 6 parts of the framework and every part has a score. Yeah. And so every part of the 6 parts, you either score 100% on that part, you get 50% credit on that part, or you get 0% credit on that part. And we use a red, yellow, green visual scoring methodology for that. So picture 6 boxes lined up side by side. Each of those boxes is either going to be red, yellow, or green. Well, you stack those on top of each other, and now we're really clear that step 6 of the bridge, they are not scheduling the next call, or they're not closing. Okay, well, we need to figure out what's going on there, and we need a coach to that. Or they're doing a great job of educating, or they're doing a great job of answering questions, but they're not qualifying. And so we are having too many conversations for too long of people who are not qualified to buy from us. Now we're wasting everybody's time, not just your salesperson's time, but the buyer's time. It's a total waste. And so that objective scoring gives you real clarity into where there are issues. And so you can speak to and coach up in very specific areas that are all tied to best practice, that are tied to the principles that we know are going to move the conversation forward effectively.
That's awesome. Kind of a more individualized approach than a general, just like, practice this framework or something like that. It's very much more individualized to the actual person making the sales call, the rep.
Yeah, 100%. If you can't measure it, you can't improve it, right? Yeah. And so when we have something to measure, now we can see what we're trying to improve, and we can actually track the improvement. That's the other thing too, is like we have real scores, real numbers and data that we can look at that will track improvement.
So somebody listening or watching right now, Erin, they're like, I'm on board. Like, this sounds great for myself, my team. How do they kind of get those first steps, their feet in the water, so to say?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing is, the assumption is you need to be recording your sales conversations. And that might sound obvious, but that is the assumption. If we're looking at if we're scoring sales conversations, it means that we have something to refer back to actually score. So it means you have to be recording. And if you're not already, there are lots of tools out there that make that incredibly easy. iPhone now even has a little
on the call
screen you can record. So it's very easy to do. Besides that, though, I would start with an audit, go back and listen to 10, 12, 20 calls from each of your salespeople. It takes time, but listen to them and track the patterns and give them a baseline score. You could do that based on our framework. You could do that based on what you think that needs to happen on your sales conversations. But the key is everybody needs to be agreed on what is our ideal call flow. What is our ideal gets covered in every call. And if we can agree on that, now we have a rubric to actually score against. So you have to get clear on those things is the very first step.
What's a story of maybe a concrete example of companies you've worked with? So what's maybe a particular story of a business you've worked with that has implemented bridge selling and it has changed their sales calls?
Yeah, I can think of a couple, some that are more small business, some that are larger companies. One of our biggest case studies to date is a company, they had kind of two sides of the company, but they do private placement investments. And on one side of the company, one of the co-founders was taking the majority of their sales calls. They had a sales team, but he was still head and shoulders above closing any of the sales team. And so this is a common problem amongst small businesses, is the owner founder is still the guy, still the gal who's the one who is, closing all the deals. And you can't stay in that mode if you're going to scale and grow, right? So you've got to be able to grow a team that can do that for you. And so when we came in, they were really struggling with the sales team to close at the same rate as the co-founder was. And so when we built out this framework, we trained them on it very quickly. We were able to replicate their best sales conversations, the co-founders' best sales conversations, and immediately they started seeing results and were able to close.
That's fascinating. Yeah.
One side of their company in a month went from closing $3 million a month in sales to $8 million the next month after closing. So that was a really cool case study. One other was a mortgage broker, so very small business. He was the main sales guy, and he was going to continue to be. But we developed his bridge for him, gave him his scoring methodology, and he implemented just a couple of things in it. And he was immediately saw a jump in the number of leads that were completing the loan applications. Like that was the hang up. Like he would have a great conversation, things seemed to be going well, and then they would not finish the application. And we made 1 or 2 tweaks in his bridge and his framework and flow of how he was talking with prospects. And immediately he saw a jump in not just applications finished or submitted, but also the time it took to go from that call to those applications being submitted and not having to chase those leads down. So it's amazing how very small tweaks can make a massive difference in your sales process from a timeline perspective, as well as close rate, which obviously translates straight to the bottom line.
Kind of going along with that, and this is maybe a side question, but when you're doing work in sales and marketing, especially when you're working with sales and marketing people like this, I'm sure they're inundated with all kinds of new frameworks, methodologies, AI tools, especially today. So what's kind of the hurdles you've run into as you're talking to these people in those companies and how have you gotten over those hurdles to let them know this is a different way of doing things, that this can actually be successful? This isn't some just new trend or something.
A couple of things. There's a ton of tools out there. There's a ton of AI tools that can give you coaching, sales coaching feedback and things like that. Gong, Avoma, like there's 1,000 of them, right? And it's not that those aren't good and helpful, but the way that our system works is we're replicating your best sales conversation, customizing the call flow. And so we know that it is built for your company and your process. It's also really simple. Because I can't tell you how many sales training, and there's big name sales training companies who've been around for decades. And it's not that they don't do good work. It's just complicated. Like it takes a massive lift to get people to adopt it, to like fully get it baked into a company and using it, where our system is really simple. It's very straightforward. We can do an audit, we can build your bridge, and you can get up and running in 30 days or less, and you can see results as quickly as like a day or a week. I mean, kind of depending on what you're selling and process, but it doesn't take long to begin to see results, which makes it really fun.
That is.
I remember reading a book early on and just being like, this is awesome. I can't remember any of this. Like you have to have like 7 sheets of paper to remember your flow. So it certainly gets complicated. As we're kind of landing the plane here, Erin, what do you feel like are some of the conversations in sales calls that are going to be changing over the next few years? Because that's something that's always evolving, your talking points or the direction you're going. What are some of the things you're seeing shift?
Yeah, I mean, I think buyers have changed since the dawn of the internet. The buying process and how people buy has changed drastically. And we are now in the age of AI, so things are changing again, and they are changing faster than the speed of light, it feels like. And so in some ways, it feels like lots is going to change, and in other ways, not a lot. Like we're still talking human to human, right? But I think that more than anything, building trust as a brand is critical in order to be successful. And what that looks like, it is not being afraid to answer and proactively address the hard questions, the objections, whatever you want to call it in the sales process, but to, instead of treating it like a sale, everybody knows when you can smell commission breath talking to a salesperson, right? And most people dread talking to salespeople, is that if you really can shift your mindset and think of yourself as, no, I'm just here to help that person make the best decision for themselves. It might be working with us. It might not be. But when you can make that shift, the people that make that shift are the ones that are going to see the most success in sales. It doesn't mean that you're not still closing. It doesn't mean that you're not still being proactive and effective in your kind of tactics of that, but you're doing it in a way that honors the other person on the other side of the conversation. And particularly as we are in the age of AI, and they already exist, but I think we'll see a much wider adoption of like AI agents and that kind of thing they're doing selling. I heard somebody say recently that, one of the things they had talked to their daughter and was like, who's a little bit younger. And she was like, I love dealing with AI agents. They're always patient and they always have empathy, right? Which is not always true when we're dealing with humans, right? And so I think as we're in sales and as we're having sales conversations, we are going to have to not just be patient and empathetic, but really not be afraid to address hard conversations and questions and be willing to go, hey, I'm just here to help you make the best decision for you.
Even if it's not with us.
Even if it's not with us.
Yeah. Well, Erin, we always end our shows with a hot take. And so we have not prepared you for this. What do you feel like is the best close tactic you're seeing across the board people use, whether that's the calendar close or contract close? What are you seeing?
Yeah. I would say a great close is giving somebody something to say yes or no to. There's a really clear, like you're either saying yes to the close, and the close might be the next conversation. It might be scheduling that next call, but it's a clear yes or no. It's not the leave it up in the air. Let me know. I'll check in with you next week. Like that's not going to get great results, but don't be afraid to ask for the next thing, whatever the appropriate next thing is. And that's half the battle, honestly. Half the time, if like people who are too soft and not willing to hear the no, when you're afraid of the no, that's when you are not going to get the results. But if you are willing to make the ask, what's the worst thing that somebody can say? No, but at least and that's actually better than the living in limbo.
Well, Erin, thanks so much for spending time with us today and sharing.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Thanks so much, Erin.
Yeah, and thank you guys so much for watching and listening to another episode of the Common House Podcast. Have a great day, everybody.